Hey, everybody. Welcome to your weekly session. Spell your words.
Welcome to your weekly session as we begin episode 5.
5 it is. Yes, we are running a little behind because we've had some hurdles, and I'm going to continue to use puns because episode 5 is the pressure of competing.
Yeah, as right now, as we speak, the Olympics is going on.
Yes.
So part of this episode is focused on that, but even expanding competition in general.
Well, and I think too, school's starting. So we're getting into those summer fall sports and all of the pressure surrounding that.
Yes. And where Cassidy and I both live, there is a huge emphasis on child athletes and kids competing and
Football.
football is huge. Massive sport here in our town. But even like volleyball, soccer, you move into winter sports of basketball and wrestling, and then track and field.
Right. And then
Baseball.
you have hockey.
Yes,
Not quite as no, but
yes, so super important.
sports.
Yeah.
Nonetheless.
Yeah.
So
As we move into this, part of what I have noted for today to talk about is the training for a lifetime that these Olympic athletes could have started training at 5.
right.
Like they start at such a young age and work their entire lives, and really even like the 4 years before Olympic events. There's such an emphasis
down to it. I was just having this conversation with my husband last night because we were talking about, well, we were watching Simone Biles and her gold medal performance, but thinking about she started, I think, 5 or 6.
Yeah, I just saw she started at 6.
Okay, so she's starting at 6. Yeah, she's competed before, but I mean the performances themselves, 20, 30 seconds.
I wrote that down. 50 seconds of
that's it. And that was like a longer routine. Like the floor routine was longer.
Yeah.
But that's still under a minute.
Well, and even as you expand, like swimmers, they might swim down and back. Like,
yeah,
that could be their heat, right?
Right.
And it's so quick. And so, little tidbit about me, I did competitive swimming for 9 years.
Really?
As a kid, and then moving into my teenage years, I love swimming. It has such a near and dear spot in my heart. I keep joking, when I have kids, they'll be forced to swim at least for a time. I'm like, it's so good. But it is so quick. Like you dive in and you go, and go as fast as you can for, the down and back, and then you're done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I was thinking we haven't ran to track yet with the Olympic Games. I think that's starting this weekend or into next week, but same kind of thing.
Yeah.
You might just be running the 200 and then you're done.
Yep. Which, like, you are using every bit of strength you have and pushing yourself as hard as you possibly can for that down
and back.
Yes. It is crazy. Even you mentioning Simone Biles starting at 6.
Competing. Yeah. And I'm curious too, sometimes the mindset of the parents. How much is coming from them? And I think that's situational.
Yeah.
Do they know? Was it fun for her? Is it fun for some? And then they realize, like, maybe I'm onto something and really good here. I wonder when they know, like, maybe I have a little bit more talent.
I watched a documentary called The Weight of Gold. Yeah, The Weight of Gold. And each of the Olympic athletes, each of them, it showed a clip of them from, I think the range was like 12 to 15, saying, I want to be in the Olympics. Like, that
was pretty early.
Yes. And Michael Phelps, he narrates this documentary, and he talks about his journey with mental health in it. But it shows a clip of him, I think at like 13. And he's just like, yeah, I'm training to be an Olympic athlete. Like, that's...
Well, I suppose some of those, I don't know. I see a lot like 16. I know this year in skateboarding, there's an 11-year-old.
So I think right now on the women's gymnastics team, The youngest gal, I think, is 16. She's either 16 or 18. I can't quite remember.
Something like that. I know Simone is the oldest.
She's 27. Yes. Which pains me a little bit. It's like 27, that's still so young.
Yeah, but I mean, all of this work, I can imagine, takes a toll on the body.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, even, I don't know, it must have been over the weekend or maybe Monday. She got injured.
Oh, yeah.
And she's pushed through and been competing through that. But some of that, as you just look at athletes, they push their body so hard. And at certain points, your body can only take so much. Like, it reaches its limit of, you can't throw me 15 feet in the air anymore. Like Simone Biles. Like, she's going so high in the air. Her body can't possibly do that forever.
Right. Yeah. It does take a toll. Well, I think some of the series and things that I've been looking at and watching on Netflix, I can't remember what the titles were.
Yeah.
It was about Olympics and Simone, but it was talking about how things have kind of shifted in sporting communities where I think mental health is a little more thought about. Previously, it was push your body beyond its capacity. Doesn't really matter if you have an injury. Yeah, keep going. And I think the idea and concept behind this, yes, the Olympics are going, but thinking back to, we're just going to keep talking about Simone. I think you have other things. I'm going to talk about Simone.
Fair.
2020 and mental health. I mean, huge, cool things. It's the Olympics, but also we had COVID and the alone bit of that. But
yes,
I think that definitely brought a lot of awareness in the sporting community.
Oh, huge.
Hockey is actually ahead of its time. They're very into mental health, but really bringing awareness to mental health and sports and how they go hand in hand.
You know, as you say that, part of this, so this documentary, The Way of Gold, it came out in 2020.
Okay.
So, and I don't know when exactly in 2020, but after the Olympics were supposed to have started.
Okay.
Because thinking about these athletes, as we said at the beginning here, train for a lifetime. Like they start at a young age and they go until they meet that. Here's the Olympics. They've gone through the trials. They've made it to the team, like all of that. Well, with 2020, it was postponed for the first time ever. And so,
really?
Yes. So you thinking about, they have hyped themselves up. They've worked so hard. And then all of a sudden what they've worked for isn't happening. And so how do you mentally process that of, all that I have just prepared for and worked so hard for isn't happening right now? And that there was not an emphasis on mental health. There was not a way to support these athletes, as literally this is their job.
Yes.
They are working for this. And even something else we can talk about today is the limited amount of financial support athletes get.
Oh, but especially in women's sports, rugby really put that out there with, is it Alana Meyer?
Yes.
She was talking about why she's on social media so frequently to bring awareness to women's rugby because it doesn't have the financial backing like men's does.
Yeah. Yeah, it's even women to men. In some ways, like women's gymnastics is huge.
Right.
The men's team this year won something. All around, or what's called? I don't. They won as a team, I think.
Yeah,
is how it works, not just their individual. So, like, that's important to know. But when you look at all the sports, in this documentary, they talk to skaters, bobsledders, just swimmers. Trying to think of everybody that was in it, and financially, like Michael Phelps talks about, and he is so well known. Like he's these like phenomenal. And he was getting $1,700 a month during training periods, which was supposed to cover training fees, groceries, living expenses, his car.
I see that.
everything.
I can only imagine some of these training fees.
Oh, whew,
Some of these gyms and the private coaches and all this stuff.
nutritionists,
So yeah,
all of that. Like,
shoot, even just the groceries. They're probably going through some meals.
yes, yes. And a while back, I'm obsessed with swimming. So Michael Phelps, him talking about um his eating habits. I don't remember which Olympics it was, but it was somewhere that was like a little cooler in temperature, which still like summer Olympics. But he had to like double what he was eating because he was burning so many calories because the water was colder. Like,
I wouldn't even thought about that.
no. So thinking about that of where you're training temperature wise, environment, $1,700 really isn't a lot. And so a lot of these athletes are working two jobs, which one's being an Olympian,
Yeah,
training to do that,
and then a full-time job.
and then a full-time job.
I don't know when they'd have time. Just the exhaust of that alone is wild.
Yeah, one of the athletes in this documentary talked about that for 5 years straight, 365 days a year they trained. So imagining no downtime, no time to just like rest, no vacations, no even staycations of like staying home and resting.
Well, even just having a bad day. I wonder what their bad days look like, and then they have to train still.
I even think part of hearing them talk, the difference between regular Joe Schmoes like us and Olympic athletes is even on the worst of days, they keep going and push through because that's part of the message here is you have to be great. You don't have time to heal or rest or whatever it is. And that circles into mental health.
Absolutely.
Where is there space for that?
Well, that makes me think, okay, we made it to the Olympics. We did the Olympics. They did however well or not. Then we have afterwards. All of that hype is now gone away. What do things look like? And I can't help but to think for a lot of these athletes, maybe more so in the past, that wave of everything they felt previously just smacking them right in the face. They now don't have anything they might be working towards. They maybe have that downtime finally.
In a sense, the avoidance. Like maybe they're training and avoiding the hurt or
yes. And as we know, like that just kind of stockpiles and it waits for that moment where
it does.
You're free now, you're available.
Yeah. When I sit with clients and hear them talking about like, how are you coping with things? I've always asked clients that of
me as well.
In what ways are you coping? It does not have to be cookie cutter. Oh, I'm getting up and looking at the sun. Or
I'm meditating.
Yeah, like I don't necessarily care to hear that unless it's true. Like if that's how you're doing it,
sure.
Awesome. Let's talk about it. But often people are like, well, I'm not really doing anything. I'm just kind of avoiding it.
Oh, I hear like I've just been distracting or I'm just going hard with work or I'm just doing more around the house. I'm like, okay. I feel like that has a time and a place sometimes.
Absolutely.
But are you aware that you're actually avoiding everything that's going on?
Yes. I love a good TV show. I've been watching the Olympics recently.
I have been obsessed.
Yeah. Some degree. I would say that's avoidance of my responsibilities. What I need to get done.
Fun thing. Yeah, this morning I really wanted to catch up on some Olympics, but I have paperwork and notes. And I had to tell myself, you can't watch it because you've got stuff you got to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Last night I gave in, did not do a single no that I should have done. But part of that is I needed a minute to avoid. I needed that minute to just
I looked like it whooped you.
Kicked my butt yesterday.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just thing after thing. And you push through. And I sit with each client and I'm present and actively participating in their therapy. But then when it's my time, I'm not always going to use the coping skills.
Yeah.
I do sometimes.
I think it's still that active work of like, I just want to zone out and numb out.
Yeah.
And then I had to be like, what are you doing? That's what you preach.
Which I can acknowledge I'm avoiding. So I think that's
I definitely have that awareness.
different. Yeah. Yeah. And like almost every morning I go walk. I start my morning with that. That's the first thing I do. Get up, take the dog, go walk. So I'm getting sunlight in my eyes, and like that's really healthy for me.
Yeah.
So my evenings look a little different a lot of the time rather than.
I think that's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. So as you said, it's this really big hype. I've been hearing it called post-Olympic depression.
Okay. I didn't know I had a name, but that totally makes sense.
Yeah. That you go, and I can imagine the dopamine that is being released for these athletes is just
intense.
Even coaches.
Yeah.
The intensity of what's going on.
Everybody is so invested here.
Oh, the amount of time and energy, financial, emotional, physical, mental, all of it that they've committed to this is just insane. And so the high of all of that, you're surrounded by thousands upon thousands of other athletes who have worked their butts off to get to this place with you.
I think I saw something around 10,000 athletes.
It's so many.
It's crazy.
So you're shared in that. You have shared meaning here with these other people. But then you go through competition and you maybe beat them or they beat you. And like the roller coaster of emotions up and down.
Yeah.
Lots of excitement. And even if you're not winning, I think that there's a sorrow, but then there's joy for the people who did. That like
you were a part still of something.
You're still an Olympic athlete.
Right. It's such an elite group of people, even if you're not getting a medal.
Yes. Yes. And even watching this documentary, it was crazy. And now I'm losing his name. He was a speed skater.
Yeah, not too many speed skaters. There's just so many sports that come out of the woodwork on the Olympics where you're just like, where'd they come from? Didn't even know. Breaking is supposed to be pumping up next week.
Okay.
Breakdancing.
Okay.
I'm kind of looking forward to it.
That would be cool.
Artistic gymnastics, where they do like the little wand thing. Ribbon.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
That'd be interesting to see that.
I know. And just like some more obscure things.
Yeah.
Whenever I love watching curling.
My brother loves curling, and the last Winter Olympics, we made fun of him because he was like, "Did you guys see curling?" We're like, okay. But you know, it's awesome. But
yeah, they're just weeping their brooms.
Yeah. So this speed skater was talking. He's now a retired Olympic athlete, won tons, but he talks about
the speed skater.
Yeah, he, as a kid, he talked like Get Out, and he was like, whether you call it ADHD or you just call it normal kid behavior, or, whatever. He's like, my parents could not figure out how to help me. And so the only thing that they could think of was making me an athlete, to focus all of this energy he had on one thing, which awesome.
Yeah.
So good at it. Yeah. So he's one of the best in the world. So it makes sense that.
Right.
But he talks about that there is such a focus on gold, silver, bronze, that getting a medal, that is the thing.
Are you not a worthwhile athlete if you don't?
Which he said in one of his races, that the time between gold and the fourth place person was this long.
Wow.
So think about that, of like this fourth place person, their name's not talked about. They kind of disappeared. They were fourth place.
Right. What are you? You're just the fourth place guy.
Still an Olympic athlete who lost by that much. Like that amount of time. You train your entire life to lose and never be spoken about.
Tenths of a second.
Yeah. It's just crazy. And like thinking about this ADHD, the loss of like all of that intertwined. You start from a kid of ADHD mental health that that's a struggle to manage and understand and figure out what's going on.
I'm curious if he's able to kind of reflect on that and if anything else would have been better, or if it felt like that was
it helpful?
Yeah. Was it helpful? Was it masking it? Did it just give some direction? I'd be curious, really, the long-term impacts there. Like, I can see where his parents are going. And at that time, that
was the option, which he talks in it as well about, he trained for, 15 some years to then go to the Olympics, right? Yeah. And that entire time, he did not feel worthy or enough.
Wow.
That he was training because he thought, there is someone better than me. I am not enough yet. I have not reached this point, so I need to keep going so that I am enough. And the power, when I was watching that, I was just like, oh my gosh, like I sit with people every day who their narrative,
that I'm not enough is so
huge.
Common.
Yes. And there's shared meaning there for a lot of people that even aren't Olympic athletes. But for him to say, I didn't feel worthy. I did not feel enough.
I wonder what that worthiness would feel like. I'd be curious now if we're having more enlightenment with mental health and sports. I'd really be curious how many athletes are going to talk about afterwards. Even if you got a medal, did that feel like enough? It was a bronze. Did it need to be a silver? I don't know. It's just so many facets here to just sit with and digest.
Well, I think you see in some of that, I think for some, it's enough to say, I did this. I was successful in this one thing that I wanted so badly. And for others, I think it probably doesn't feel like enough, which is why they continue to go back.
Yeah.
And continue to try. And like one of the guys in the documentary, he said, talking like he was almost the golden child of his sport and then started messing up, and people were really shameful. And so almost to like earn back the love of the United States.
Yeah. Well, I think that goes into how social media plays such a big role now.
Huge.
Everybody's commenting on the performance.
Everyone.
Yeah, we're commenting from the luxury of our homes and doing whatever we want.
Sitting on the couch.
We know exactly how it should go, and you should just be able to do it.
Yeah. I don't think we can possibly ever understand the dedication, the time, the energy, the physical, mental, emotional, everything that goes into that to then go be put in the spotlight, everyone watching.
Well, I even just saw some of the cameramen, the camera crews at the Olympics at the gymnastics. They had like this whole pit. I swear there was like 100 cameras.
That was crazy. I saw that.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I was like, how do you not just like sweat through your uniform? Yeah. How do you not just like internally freak out? Because I'd just be like, too many people. You have people cheering out the stands. You have, I mean, in some of these, there's different events going on too. So you really have to be zeroed in, on what it is you're doing.
Yeah. Well, even I think you and I, it was sometime this week, we talked about, obviously off camera, off mic, about Simone Biles in the 2020 Olympics, I think it was, where she had the twisties.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That was 2020.
The disconnect, which I learned, I didn't know what that was, but it's a disconnect between mind and body. And the world was saying, how could she do this?
I remember they were up in arms, like
drilling into
how, like, you're spoiled. You got all the way to the Olympics and now you're giving up now. You're ruining it for your team. I know that was a strategic move. Watching her recent documentary, getting out because of mental health meant that it didn't subtract any points from her team.
Yeah.
But she goes on to talk about feeling afraid to come back because everybody was so pissed and disappointed.
Yep. She didn't compete, I don't think, or do any gymnastics for like 2 years.
Yeah, no, she took time off. She's heavy into therapy. I believe she reports going every Thursday. So good for her.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
But really finding, I think, the joy in it again and trusting herself. I think with that mind-body disconnect, it's really having to trust in the skills again.
And like her trusting in no one else has control over this.
Right.
It's just her. Like, this isn't a team sport where someone else picks up your slack. This is on her.
You doing you. Well, and a lot of things too, people don't register is she can get severely injured, especially like on vaults with the amount of flips and things she's doing. So with those twisties, she could be landing in a very unfortunate place. Yeah.
Yeah. Her being in therapy, talking about that, then she chose to step away for her own mental health, despite probably some fear, the criticism of so many people, maybe a fear of letting down her team, concerns with that, like,
I'm sure, yeah,
all of that. And then she steps away, takes 2 years to go to therapy, to rebuild that probably sense of self, reconnect with her, that there is something that I think's a tragedy within therapy and athletes, or specifically Olympians, is, as I was watching this documentary, one of the gals was like, people tell you to get in therapy, but how do you trust a therapist? How do you know that they're not going to use what you say against you because you're in the public eye? Like, all this stuff, and my heart broke for that.
That's a HIPAA violation. Yeah, it really sucks if that's the view out there.
Yeah.
I mean, I could think as a therapist, that would be really cool if I had one of these athletes, but
amazing.
I don't want to lose my license and my job.
No.
You know who I see.
And even thinking about from the perspective of like being a therapist and also have been a client, that there is so much trust that goes into these relationships.
Yeah.
So much emphasis on connection and being safe and knowing there are limited things we can share without your permission. Like, both you and I are mandated reporters. So child, elderly person, intellectually disabled individual, abuse or neglect. We can report that. And I don't know your licensure rules on this, but I have a duty to warn. So if someone came in and said they're going to harm themselves or someone else, I have a duty to warn.
Absolutely, yes.
And that breaks confidentiality. But really outside of that,
yeah,
I'm not anything.
I can't just be shouting to the rooftops.
No.
I've got an Olympian.
And I don't think I'd want to. I think for them to have a safe space, and even with my clients that, like, I have some family members that want to say, yeah, you know, Cindy, that's not really their name, but, you know, I know you see whoever, and I'm like, I can't confirm or deny that. It's not my place to say. If you guys want to know you're in therapy with the same therapist,
you talk to each other.
Sign a release. Like, I'm not saying anything. Even you can literally see someone in the lobby walk out of my office, and then you walk in and say, oh, I didn't know you see Cassidy. And I'd be like, hey, like, that's not my space. So for these huge athletes, to be fearful of who they can trust,
that is so unfortunate.
It's heartbreaking.
Because just going again to Simone as an example, she can take the 2 years off and she'd be going back to the Olympics. So think about how much therapy and focusing on mental health would actually potentially boost some of these athletes. Cause shame.
It's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Yes. And the thought of even the Olympic athletes that don't get gold, silver, bronze, but are good enough to be in the Olympics.
Yeah.
That could potentially go back a second time and win gold, silver, bronze.
Yep.
But have the cognitive distortions or negative thought patterns that, or even adding on to that, depression that keeps them from going back.
I can't make a mistake. I'm not enough.
Not worthy of that.
Pressure is on me. Yeah.
I didn't do it the first time. Why would I do it the second time?
I'm curious some of the mindsets. Like, when do they know it's enough? When is enough enough?
I don't know. Like even Michael Phelps, he's got, I'm going to botch these numbers, but he's got over 20 gold medals. He's got like 2 or 3 silver and then 2 or 3 bronze.
Okay.
And I think potentially my mom's saying this, that all of his gold medals are individual. So like he competed alone and won those, and then silver and bronze were team events. But those numbers are massive. He's probably got 30 medals from the Olympics. How did he know that was enough? Like, yeah, how did he get to that point to say,
did the documentary say like why he retired?
It did not say why he retired.
It remembered why he did.
He is older.
Is he in his late 30s?
He's 39 right now. And I believe, was it 2020 the last time he competed?
I thought it was before.
It might have been 2016.
Yeah.
But he talks about that he wouldn't have gotten mental health. But he hit rock bottom and got 2 DUIs.
I remember afterwards. Yeah, I think that. Yeah. Afterwards, it was like, oh my gosh, this great person, this great athlete's now having some whoopsies.
Oh, it's a shame.
Yeah.
We don't talk about why is he drinking and driving? What's pushing him to drink so much? Like,
well, and specifically in his case, he went from nobody to the swimmer.
Yes. Which he talks about. He checked himself into like an inpatient treatment center and came back out of that ready to help other athletes with mental health.
Good.
That there was such an emphasis for him of this is lacking so tremendously. Absolutely. We need to do better.
I wonder if any mental health professionals go to the Olympics.
Okay, honestly, when I was watching this, I was thinking about that. I was like, why do they not have someone on hand?
Yeah. No, I was thinking this morning. I was like, I wonder if Simone Biles' therapist said, like, if you need me, double call me because I'm probably on Do Not Disturb because I'm sleeping because of the time difference. But like, why don't you give me a shout and we'll talk on the phone? Like, I was thinking that earlier.
Yeah. Even like thinking about just a therapist, a person, mental health focused, being there in each sporting event.
I know it's like maybe not each team, but maybe certain sections.
Like all gymnastics.
Yeah.
All rugby, all swimming. And that if you lose or even you win and you're like
working on, there's like a day or two sometimes between competing.
Yes.
We did so good and now we're this step closer.
Yep. And what do you do if you don't feel fulfilled?
Yeah.
You win multiple medals and you don't feel like, oh, I did it. Like satisfied, that there's this emptiness post-Olympic depression. Is there someone you can go talk to? Because
how many are going to be checking into therapy afterwards?
Yep.
I hope a lot.
I hope so too. And I don't know. I was probably not paying enough attention during this period, but a few years back, there was an Olympic athlete that committed suicide. In the Olympic Village.
Really?
That's the way I understood it, that his best friend was also an Olympic athlete, and she found him in his room.
And they go compete. But I've also seen in the news I don't remember what country, somebody had lost a sibling right before the Olympics started. Okay. So like they can put their heart and soul into competing for that person. But I can only imagine I just lost my sister and now I'm going to go compete for my life.
Yeah.
It's happiness and that intense grief. And so many facets at play here.
So many. And I'm so glad that they discussed this in the way they did in the documentary. That his death was a really big deal. That people were really upset about it. It was like super widely known. He was not the first.
Mm.
And that they went through and talked about other athletes that in the years before had ended up committing suicide. And the difficulty thinking about these are top participants in the world.
Yeah. I guess from our perspective, we think, oh man, they have it all. What do
But
they feel upset about?
I think we probably experienced that some in our offices as well, of clients coming in and saying, I have a green light
Yeah.
and I'm still struggling, and making peace with it. It's okay. In the midst of all the joy, if you're still feeling the sorrow or depression,
You can have both. Things can be great. I do think that goes into like invalidating your own experience because it's not as bad as the next
yes,
person's.
yes, the comparison
Yes.
of, well, they have it better, so, or they have
They
it
have it
worse.
worse, so I should be more grateful.
Yeah, I should be happy with what I have.
And that's just not how it works.
The shoulding. I I love to say to clients, man, I just heard you should yourself. Like, and clients are like, man, I did. Like,
I want
glad you should yourself.
Yeah.
Because why box yourself into that and limit?
It's not helpful to anybody. It's not helpful for you. And honestly, I think that adds to the issue of not experiencing your emotions.
I think with all of this kind of processing the commitment from childhood.
Well, shoot, just thinking about that now too. You don't really get a childhood. Some of these kids end up becoming homeschooled so they can spend hours practicing at the facilities.
Yep. And they talked about that, that you sacrifice your time with family, your time with friends, your time at school. You probably don't participate in your sport at your school.
Yeah.
That there's lots of sacrifice and, in a way, isolation.
Yes.
That it is you and you're competing
And
for you.
others, your peers can't understand down to that extreme.
No. So how do you seek that out? Who can understand? How do you process this isolation, loneliness, intensity?
I could only assume that some athletes are like, well, I guess I just need to channel that,
Buckle in.
into the sport. Take that angst and put it back towards competing.
Which I'm curious from your perspective, and obviously you don't necessarily have to answer, but seeing the kids compete in hockey or volleyball or, whatever sport it might be, if you see benefit with young kids participating, one in a sport, but then even like a group sport, does it seem like there's more connection?
Yeah. Well, at least for our older, he has community and friendship within the team itself, and he's found confidence within himself learning these skills and getting to compete. Now we have discussions just because I go therapeutic wise into it, but competing and looking at it towards you're only trying to compete against yourself and get better.
Yeah.
And if it's not your day, then that's okay too. You can try harder the next day.
So that even is so interesting, thinking about you're your only competition.
Yes.
With that Olympic athlete that was talking about, I wasn't enough because there was someone out there better than me. And so for you to shift that for your boys, it's only you. You don't have to compete against anybody else.
Yeah.
Because you're enough. I mean,
yeah, no, we always stress, do it if you're loving it, if you're having fun with it. If it ever feels like there's too much pressure, let us know. And I have to try really hard. And sometimes performance is like, oh, we should have done this, that, and the other. I ask, hey, do you want feedback afterwards? Sometimes I can tell he's frustrated with himself. And sometimes I just go at it. We don't say anything. I just let him know some positive things. And later on, after he digests and things die down, he might say, oh, I'm thinking this about the game today. I try not to hound and put that pressure on. I'm like,
yeah.
Again, I'm just sitting in the stands. You needed to be doing this.
Yes.
My skating isn't great. Last time I did it, I sprained my ankle. So I don't have room to talk.
You got injured last time.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah.
In front of all those kids. That was a real
It happens.
hit to the ego.
But I think even you getting back up and not allowing it to crush your dreams of ever skating again.
Yeah, I'm not going to be on the PWHL anytime soon, unfortunately. But that's what I did it, the whole purpose, because it was parents against their kids.
Yeah.
And they're 8 and under. And I told them, like, I'm going to look kind of dumb and I'm going to be kind of silly. It's okay. Sometimes I guess he always thinks that I just know how to do everything all the time. So these kids were talking shit on you. They were like, we're going to beat you. And here I am. I tripped over myself and sprained my ankle. So I sat down.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, yeah, very humbling. Yeah. So thinking about something's got to change in the Olympic world and potentially
in sporting in general.
Yeah. Yeah. Because we mentioned at the beginning of this, the town we live in.
Yes.
Football is huge, like just a massive part of this community, which I think awesome in some ways and also detrimental in others.
Again, I think it boxes. Yeah.
Well, it's even this is silly, okay? But thinking about High School Musical, did you ever watch that?
Yes. Who didn't?
But those kids were limited to one thing, that you're a loser if you do theater or even vice versa, like dumb athletes, like that kind of battle. And that movie showed that there could be both.
Yeah.
And I think for athletes, Olympic athletes, or just regular athletes, there can be both of commitment and endurance and desire to win, and also paying attention to your mental health and getting help.
Again, I just think it's only going to help you become a better athlete at the end of the day.
Yeah. Yeah. Why they train focused on physical health, nutrition, getting good sleep, like all of that. Why
not your mental?
Why is that missing? So if you were to put into words how you think that could shift for athletes based on therapists or parenting or just sporting culture, what do you think people could do to shift that?
I think it's going to come to continual awareness. I'll be curious how the media talks about Simone now that she came back better than ever. Is that going to allow us to continue to have a conversation about it? Or, was that a one-off? Yeah, I think we have to be a lot more purposeful about it. And even with my program, sports therapy is coming up as well. So I think we're trying. Yeah. It just needs more of a push, more awareness, really.
Okay. So who brings that awareness? Is that the athletes? Is it coaches, parents?
I don't know. I think
all the above.
Sort of, yeah. Yeah. But I think if sports therapy is going to become more of a thing, I think in some of these arenas, inserting that, letting groups, letting these sports know this is a thing. Yeah. Or having coaches say, like, hey, guys, your homework is to find a therapist and you need to be seeing them at least twice a month. I don't know. Yeah. Go 5 times. Like, you could put maybe that's requirements for the sports themselves at certain levels.
Is there like an Olympic committee?
Yeah.
So like them requiring it of athletes
leading up to and afterwards. So many sessions, perhaps.
Yeah, thinking.
And then it's on your own, and maybe that's just enough to get that ball.
Yep. If you want to compete, have to go to 6 sessions in this 6-month period minimum.
Yeah.
And thinking about, we talked a little bit about the money that's provided to these athletes. Potentially that's something the Olympic Association pays for.
I was thinking some of these levels association, some of these groups I would think would have some funding.
It'd have to.
Yeah.
Which even thinking about
services funding.
One of the gals talked about that she decided to not be an Olympic athlete anymore, like had gone to 3 Olympics, and got a notification that said like you have 1 month of insurance left, and changing like how do you navigate. So like
that's messy.
If you have insurance as an athlete, you can see a therapist.
Yeah.
But yeah. So I think overall what we've talked about today leads back to our favorite saying.
Yes. If nothing changes, nothing changes. Thanks for watching.